Hello, and welcome back. You're listening to From the Valley, and my name is Kaelyn Ham. What does it look like to talk to people about Jesus? How do we make connections with our friends and our family and reach people for Christ, especially in a post-COVID world? And what are our goals in all of this? That's what we're talking about today on episode 3, Building Bridges, with special guest, Sheri Rempel. Well, welcome, Sheri. Thanks for coming. Thanks for being willing to not just record, but to film. So you had to do your hair and you had to
You're getting a very authentic look because this is the I was too tired to blow dry look. So we're setting the bar low for future podcast guests.
You look lovely.
We'll see how well Serge does his hair when he comes and visits.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I expect fabulous things from him.
Fabulous. Always fabulous.
But welcome. You're our third guest here at From the Valley. And I would love to start, just like our previous guests. Could you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do here specifically at Sturgeon Valley Baptist Church? Because you're our newest staff member.
I am.
Not by much, but still, you're the newest.
Snuck in under the wire there. That's right. So I started here at Sturgeon Valley at the end of August. So it hasn't been quite a full school year. Like in the Kidsman world, it's kind of like school years are how I track things. And so I started in August and joined the ministry efforts here. And what I do is I'm our children's director. So that means that I get to have all the fun and do all the crafts.
That's very true.
So I do. It's like necessary skills. How good are you with a glue gun? Can you handle noise? No. So what I look after is all of our kids' programming for our youngsters, kind of grade 6 and below. So we've got everything from expectant parents, some of them first-time parents, get to walk through some of that journey with them, and through the preschool and nursery ages and our amazing kids club program that we have here on Sunday. And we're just gearing up for first season with me here for VBS.
Oh, you're going to do
So
great.
this is going to be so much fun.
For those, if you're listening and you don't know what VBS is, it's basically our kids' summer camp.
That's right.
Well, VBS is Vacation Bible School.
That's right. But we're going to call it Discovery Kids Camp this year.
Rebrand.
Holly started
brand.
that. My predecessor here started with the Discovery Kids Camp, and I like that.
Yeah, that is nice.
Because it isn't about, kids think, school. It's so much more than that. It's about really them discovering this amazing life that they can have with Jesus as walking alongside of them and being part of it. So it's going to be a blast.
Oh, that's going to be fantastic.
I'm going to be covered in like sparkles and feathers, I'm sure, by the end of the week, but it'll be lots of fun.
So for those in our congregation who don't know you, could you just share a little bit about where you were before SVBC, a little bit about your testimony? Are you an old spinster who lives with 12 cats?
Yes.
Like what?
No. My hay fever would never allow that. But I do have a dog. I do have a golden retriever named Buddy. And so the kids get to see him lots of part of our programming. He's always sharing his pictures and little videos and that. But I'm a mom, so not quite a spinster. I did successfully nag a husband.
Nice.
So Lyndon and I have been part of Sturgeon Valley for 3-4 years-ish. Kind of just getting to know people right before pandemic hit. So we're having lots of fun getting to re-know and reintroduce ourselves with a lot of people. And we have 3 girls, and they are 8. This is birthday week, so we're going to graduate them up past their birthdays because by the time this airs, I'll get in big trouble for not saying their new dates because it's a big deal. So we've got one who's 8, another one turning 13 this week, another one turning 14.
Oh, that's so fun.
Yes. So we were part of our church here before I came into the role. And before that, we spent 14 years up in Slave Lake. So I was born and raised in Lethbridge, met my husband when he was down coming to school, and ran away to the far north as soon as I could because I just loved it. So we've kind of balanced it out and moved closer to the middle of Alberta. We're getting there. But
Very fun. And have you always been in children's ministry? Is this the thing you've always done?
Oh, no. I kind of stumbled into it. It's a funny story. I did not like working with kids. There's my deep secret.
Uh-oh.
It's amazing
Everyone,
what God
don't listen
can
to this.
do with I know, kids, cover your ears. But it's amazing what God can do with your life because I grew up kind of with faith all around me, but not in the way that people would necessarily expect somebody who grew up kind of in the church or on the fringe of the church. So one of the small miracles in my life is that I was part of a church family down in Lethbridge at the Free Church where I got to hear the gospel and dedicate my life to Christ when I was about 7. But then my family left the church at about 10. So from 10 to about 16, we weren't regularly attending. We didn't, we weren't part of a small group. We didn't have close family friends that were talking about the faith and actively living it out kind of in our house and around us all the time. And so what a blessing it is to look back and see that God used that snapshot of time where I was, as a kid, part of kids ministry to really grab a hold of me. And that really carried me through some tumultuous teen years. And when I was in high school, I thought, okay, I'm going to do youth group. And so I still can't believe I did this because I was so horribly shy. I don't know how I pulled this off. Looking back, it makes no sense to me. But I somehow convinced my parents that they should take me to youth group on the complete other end of the city and drop me off. And I did.
Nice.
And I met some of my greatest friends there and got connected with the youth pastor. And that's been a huge part of my story moving forward.
Aww.
Yeah, he was amazing and really got to dig into it. Really get to have my faith as my own, during those years, and recently reconnected with him. He's amazing. So Jeff Gallagher, if you're listening, you had such a huge role. We never, I don't think we give our youth pastors enough credit, in those years where you can kind of wander a little bit and you have so many hard questions and you don't know where you're looking for answers.
Yeah.
To have somebody like we have Pastor Justin here and I had my Pastor Jeff be able to walk alongside me, that was huge. Yeah. But then I kind of left that whole world, went through university and moved up north and started working at a church up there after I had the kids and had parts to play in kids ministry and that. And it was kind of one of those things where it was a need. And I was like, I'll do anything. And they were like, great, kids ministry. And I was like, oh no, I didn't know what I was doing. And it was loud and I was overwhelmed. And there's I don't know if you've ever been new to a place where people are looking to you. I had no idea what I was doing. And it was overwhelming. So I always say if I can do kids min, even if just being in a room and coloring with kids, or doing what I do on a daily basis, if I can do it by the grace of God, anyone can do it.
Well, I think you're fantastic at it.
Well, you have to say
we love
that.
having you around. And, I've done parts of the job and it's a lot of high energy. And the kids love you. The families love you. We love you on staff. We love having you.
So amazing. So, I love it. That's the funny thing is it took this like begrudging spirit that I had. And it's become like a deep passion of mine. Like, I just love it. I can't believe I get to do this. Like, how lucky am I?
I can relate to that.
Yeah.
I never thought I'd work in a church. I was like, I don't want to do that. That's not for me. And God was like, well, actually, I have different plans for you.
That's the thing.
And it's pretty amazing how he works.
Yeah, you never know.
Our lives. But you're here. We love having you.
I'm here.
And you thought for a long time about what you wanted to talk on.
I did.
Coming on the podcast. And what we settled on, and you have this lovely picture. So if anyone's just listening, it's a picture of an old bridge. Mm-hmm. And you're very passionate about bridges,
Yes.
like this lovely train bridge.
It's very weird. I understand that.
Why? Can you explain
I
to me
know.
what
I'm
is
like,
this
Kaelyn, we're
bridge
talking
for?
about bridges. She's like, oh, okay.
Like the train bridges?
Yeah.
Is that what we're
Well, here's the
getting
thing.
into?
You grow up in Lethbridge, you know about bridges. So if you've ever been to Lethbridge, if any of our listeners have been there, when you drive into the city from the north, you see this beautiful high-level bridge. And it's black steel. It's amazing. And it's funny, I looked it up. I was rusty on my Lethbridge knowledge, for shame. So I had to look it up. So it was constructed in 1908, which is amazing to me that, I think of some of our modern marvels. And to think that 1908 they could build something like this is just astounding to me. And it took only about a year, which is kind of crazy because nothing gets done in a year these days.
Nope.
Yeah. It's still the longest and highest of its kind in the world.
Wow.
So it's 1.6 kilometers long and 96 meters off of the Coulee Valley. And CN Rail goes across it. We used to watch, this is how old I am. We used to watch the engines and the cabooses.
Ooh.
Ooh, yes. We loved watching it. And there was a big park under it and you could climb on the bottom. And it was just fascinating to me.
And is that the bridge in
Yeah.
this picture?
That's the bridge in this picture. So this is a picture from when they were building it. And I keep this in my office at home as a reminder that it takes so many people. You look at this and you don't often think of how many different people had parts to play in creating this. And you can see kind of way down at the bottom of the picture, there's this one tiny silhouette of a man and the scale of him in comparison to this giant engineering feat. And then as you kind of look further into the picture, you start to see all these other it's almost like ants in an anthill. You see one mass and then you see 1,000 of them appear. And so it's always just a reminder to me to know where I'm going. They're building with specific intention to get to a different point on the other side. So they're setting their sights on something and they're building towards it. And a reminder for me that I can never go at it alone. And my foundation needs to be sturdy. It's that age-old, house upon the rock. There's that kids song, that old kids camp song. Of building a house with a strong foundation, and that being the foundation on the Word of God and a relationship with Christ. And then that you can't go at it alone. You have to have other people as part of that journey. A year to do anything. It takes so many people. I think of, it's probably if I started cleaning out my entryway closet, it would take me a year. Never mind building a bridge, right? Like it's just a great reminder to me and encouragement in my faith and ministry. So I wanted to share that with you guys today.
Very cool. So in talking about building bridges, obviously, I mean, you and I were not literal bridge builders. We're not building
I've tried.
train
I'm very
bridges.
terrible at it.
Maybe someone listening is, and like kudos to them.
That would be amazing.
But I doubt that the majority of us are building actual bridges. So what does this mean for anyone who doesn't literally build a bridge?
Yeah, they're like, why do I care about bridges,
Yeah.
right? Like, they're like, yeah, they're great to look at. They get things from one side to another.
And often in the Christian context, we'll talk about building bridges to our community or like building
Definitely.
bridges to your spouse. And, in talking with you, I think that's the first thing that always came to my mind is I'm building a bridge to something. But you seem to have a different idea about what building
do.
bridges in lives are.
Yeah.
So could you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, it's that one little word, too, right? That statement of I'm building a bridge to, and you're right, we hear that so often from the pulpit and other ways, not just here at Sturgeon Valley, but globally in the church, building bridges to our communities, into our communities, and so forth. But it's more than that. That word to becomes with or alongside of. And that's so critical. Growing up in Lethbridge, we talked a lot about evangelism and specifically using the bridge illustration to do that. If you're looking at it, here's a little picture. Here's my beautiful picture.
Ah, yes,
But
I've
what you
seen this
see,
before.
yeah, it's real, it's one of those things that we often see and you go, oh yeah, I learned that years ago. Where you've got man on one side of this valley. There's two hills with a deep valley in the middle. And there's a man on one side, and on the other side is God. Well, how do you get from God and there's sin all around him? How do you move from that to God? And Christ, and you see that symbolism of the cross become the bridge that takes man to God. And it's just so powerful to me because man didn't create that bridge. That bridge was always there for us. And likewise, God created that bridge, but it takes man getting onto it.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's responsibilities and there are parts to play on both ends. And I think we take it upon ourselves a lot, that responsibility, that I am responsible for going out into my community. And then we get paralyzed. I've certainly been at that point. It's like, well, how? Like when I moved to St. Albert, it's like, well, how? How do I get to know my neighbors? How do I build a bridge into a community that I know nothing about? And so for me, my experience has been starting with something that you're passionate about or that you're interested in or that you're curious about. We think, well, I'm a mom. I'm at home all the time. How do I go beyond that? It's an isolating world. And I've been a part of that. It's funny. I'm reading this book. It's called Rocking Ordinary. And it's kind of tongue in cheek, but it's got these wonderful nuggets in it that are so encouraging to me. Leanne Garfias is the name, and it's called Rocking Ordinary. And this quote here just resonated with me. She said, so she had a part of her story, she challenged herself as part of making bridges, and she didn't use that phrasing, but going out into her community and making disciples and all this. She thought about having lunch with a friend once a year. And then she thought, well, this is great, but first I had to make some friends. And I thought, oh, guilty, right? We become so consumed in our regular lives that building that bridge, from our daily experience to the Great Commission of going forth, making disciples, teaching them and baptizing them, it's such a big jump from what our regular experience is that is overwhelming. So she said this about that. She said, first I had to make some friends. She goes on to say, you may or not be laughing, depending on how recently you've counted how many in real life friends you have. I had to look that up. It said IRL, and then I realized, oh my goodness, I'm so old. So your friends IRL in real life.
Okay.
Versus your friends that you have on social media or, your acquaintances that you build. We've kind of diluted that term. And she said, we've become a generation of women with handfuls of friends on Facebook, but fewer than a handful in our own communities. And we're super connected across the country and around the world to topics or movements or any of these other things. But to be deeply connected to the communities that we spend the majority of our time in, it's an afterthought. And it says that the ties that bind us to our church and to our families and our communities are often very thin. And we're a race of very popular hermits. I love that. A race of very popular hermits.
I'm definitely a hermit.
Right? And out of that, it breeds so much loneliness.
Yeah.
And then you think, you come to a church service or you're in a group or you see this thing somewhere that's encouraging you to go out and build a bridge into your community. You think, but how? Well, it first of all takes the responsibility I take very seriously as, someone in ministry to build those bridges within our church. That's been a key initiative of mine, if you want to call it that. It sounds so formal. But getting to know not just our kids, but their families. That's that bridge into their daily lives. And then you get to know their interests and you just build these natural bonds. And they can be so different than me. I think sometimes we're like to surround ourselves, and it's comfortable to surround ourselves with people that are like us. And they're not necessarily challenging what we think or feel, or they look like us. They feel more approachable, right? Building a bridge to something beyond that is terrifying. And that's where we have to, in my opinion, change our mindset from I'm building a bridge to I'm going to go out and build a bridge with others. I'm going to build a bridge with my community. It's involving them in that process. And that's what is so different for me when I think of it.
Yeah. I really love that. It's so hard to, I don't like making friends, for example. If you're trying to build a bridge, figuratively with a friend, to do it alone.
Yeah.
Like if that friend isn't putting anything in either, like you're not going to be friends then.
Right? So. It doesn't have to be a lonely experience. And you don't have to bear that responsibility alone. And, just like I always looked at that bridge, they knew where they were going. They had a point that they wanted to reach. And there was people on both sides coming to meet in the middle. And it's creating that environment where it's safe to meet in the middle.
Yeah.
I think we've become really good at having a strong community in our church. Do we have an environment? And this is a challenging thing for me to look at. Have we created an environment where it's safe for people to be welcomed into? And it's comfortable and approachable. And I know somebody out there is listening and they're going, seeker sensitive, right?
Oh, careful with those terms.
I know, but somebody's thinking it. And it's not about going to an extreme. It's about not diluting who we are. Because I think that's the knock that movement gets. It's about diluting something to make it comfortable and easy and palatable for a certain type of person to come to it. It's not that. It's being secure in who you are and then opening that up. And I think that's where it comes from. And like I said, you can be an expert in something and build a common interest on it. But you don't have to. You don't have to be passionate about soccer, for example. So my daughter just started outdoor soccer. If you know me, and I don't need very many references on this, aside from the many bruises that I have and the knock I get in my family, I am horribly clumsy. It's funny, as we were walking in to do this podcast, I dropped all my books and Kaelyn picked up after me. I'm horribly clumsy. So the idea of anything that involves hand-eye coordination does not really sit well and match with my interests and abilities. And so the idea of building a bridge into my community through soccer is so outlandish. Well, now I have this little girl who just adores it. And she's just so naturally inclined towards it. And she's as clumsy as I am sometimes, yes. But she just has this incredible joy through it. And just in the past couple of weeks, I'm sitting with other people in the community that I would have never met otherwise. So it's just having it on your mind as you're going about these kind of natural opportunities that present in front of you. That you don't have to go at it alone. My little girl helped me build this bridge into my community.
Aww.
And I'm not sitting down and saying, "How was your week? Can I pray for you?" to these strangers. It's, "Hey, how you doing? It's really cold out here, isn't it?" And just making these mutual bonds and that natural connection of meeting each other in conversation. How small. That's the start of it.
Yeah.
We don't have to be overwhelmed about the end. You have to have it in the back of your mind that this is who I am as a Christian. I want to reach others and share this amazing secret to life that I have. We don't want it to be a secret. We want it to be the worst kept secret in the world. And you just go in, just comfortable with who you are, clumsiness and all, and just seize those opportunities to make those connections.
And it really seems like it's a bit of a mindset change. Like it goes from worrying about the destination of I have to build the bridge to get to the person to tell them about
Yes.
Jesus,
Mm-hmm.
which is important, but it becomes about with this other person, like you're building the bridge, you're building this relationship. And through the experience of building that, like that's where like
Yeah.
that's kind of the destination in and of itself is to have those experiences, which I just thought I'd never thought of it that way, which is just so cool. I like that.
Well, it takes the pressure off, right?
It does, yeah.
You know, and that's one of the beautiful things that I love about Christianity and about the example that we have in Scripture of Jesus is that in many circumstances, even he didn't go at it alone.
Mm-hmm.
He could have. You know, let's be honest. He didn't need his disciples there in order to perform a miracle, but he had them with them for a specific purpose
Mm-hmm.
and alongside of him. And what a cool thing that we get to do that, to have people alongside of us in our journey. And it doesn't have to be, like you said, this big overwhelming, I have to get to my community. You know, it's just taking advantage and seeing the many little opportunities that you have. Yeah.
So as a church specifically, and as like the corporate church, how do you think we can go about building bridges with our communities rather than to our communities? Because I think so often outreach, if we're not careful, can be very too focused. We have to go to the community. We have to go, you know, to this people group. Or so how do we change that? How do we shift that mindset, in your opinion?
Yeah. Well, and I think in part of that process, we make a lot of assumptions. You know, I want to go to the hurting, the lost, the desperate, the desolate, the poor, the hungry. We make all these assumptions. For all we know, our outreach to a food bank could be what enables a very strong Christian who's in line at a food bank to have that opportunity to build a bridge with the person in front of her. You know, I don't think and it's so natural in our human nature to not look at the big picture. And so I think part of that is appreciating that the bridge goes both ways. You know, what do you need? You know, I feel much more comfortable going into situations where I know I can be part of it. And if I have a friend that I meet and they're like, "Hi, how are you doing? How can I help you today?" I'm turning around and running the other direction. It's like, I'm not gonna tell you, like, we're not there yet. And B, I don't know if you're the person I want to fill that need, whatever it may be. And yet it was probably very well intentioned of them, right, to serve. Now imagine that same friend comes to me and says, "How are you doing today?" And you go, "Yeah, good, fine, whatever," you know, our usual answer. You know, it's almost become part of our greeting, not an actual sincere question. You know, and when we say, "How are you?" they go, "Man, I'm struggling. This week was awful. I'm exhausted. You want to go get a coffee? Like, I just need to get out of here for 2 minutes. Let's go grab a coffee." And you say yes. That's the start of it. It doesn't have to be about solving a problem. Sometimes the solution is just that connection. And I'm not trying to undermine the amazing work that churches do, including ours. There's a definite need for it. And we have partnered intentionally with organizations that go out and do meaningful work and create these meaningful bridges into our communities. And I love that. And I think it's also about being willing to bring our authentic selves to the table. You know, individually, I think I brought my stack of books. This is fine. So this is a stack of books that is living on my table where I have my morning coffee right now. And before we started talking about the podcast, so I just thought it was so funny how everything came together. So, of course, there's the Rocking Ordinary. I've been reading The Post-Quarantine Church by
Oh.
Tom Rainer. It's small, it's easy digestible, but it just opened up my mindset to thinking about things in a different way and what those needs are and how the church can show up to meet the needs of their church family, but also balancing the outreach with it. So that was a good read. And these two I've been reading selfishly. Sometimes you read stuff and you're like, I'm really interested in this for work or for, in my case, ministry or that. This I'm just reading for me. It's called Find Your People. And it's such a delightful little book. And it's about building deep community in a lonely world. And it's by Jenny Allen. It's not faith-based, which is refreshing for me sometimes to get an outsider perspective on things. And it was really neat to see her talk about ways that she went out and did that, being a grown-up. And, it's hard to make friends as an adult.
Yeah.
So how do you do that,
It is.
especially coming out of COVID, where everybody's been in their own little bubble and you're not really sure where people are at and connecting and like, can I invite them over? Are like they okay going out to a restaurant? How do they feel about community parks? Like we've got all these things that have complicated it. And so we kind of just don't, right? And so that was really interesting for me to get some new perspective. And this is another one. It's called The Turquoise Table. And in St. Albert, this is one that our community, our family and community services talked about and introduced me to. It's the story of this woman who thought, enough, I know none of my neighbors. And she was feeling pretty lonely living in a city. And so she created this gathering space in her front yard just to see what would happen. She painted a turquoise picnic table and just sat there, and it became this like point of connection, a bridge into her community. Just started with her own loneliness. How do I solve this for me? So it's okay to come from a need perspective too. And I think from a church, we think so often of what do others need. Well, I'll tell you right now, the list of what our church needs is long. The list of what our children's ministry needs right now is long. And if we're open to creative ways and we're open to people filling those needs for us, it's amazing how many bridges can be built in that process. And again, they're just simple. They're natural. We don't have to overthink it, And for me, that's so freeing. Yes, we go into it with an intention to meet people. Let's meet them on the bridge, And let's make sure our foundation is strong, that we're rooted in Christ. And that we're authentic in where we're at and who we are. And we travel that bridge together.
Do you have any practical tips? I wish I was better at being a people person. I always feel really awkward talking to people, even people I know. Like I'm like, I just don't know. Like, stop talking to me. I don't want to. But like, I want those relationships. I want to build bridges with people. Do you have any like practical tips, like Sheri's 5 steps to bridge building? Like,
see, that's what I should have brought. Sheri's 5 steps to bridge building.
Yeah.
Be you. It's that simple. A real friend accepts you for who you are in all your clumsiness and messiness. And I feel like that's our goal, right? We want to have people that are around us that just get us, and that's intimidating because when we go to meet new people, we kind of put our best faces forward, and it's uncomfortable, being vulnerable. I'll give you a couple examples. How about that?
I love examples.
Okay. Especially for parents. Right? Because I think that we can't overlook the power of building bridges in our own families and in our homes. And I think that's where it starts. One of my daughters loves sci-fi fantasy. I don't. If you had me like rate all of the like types of movies or books and that I love, I would probably forget about putting it on the list. Like it's that low. And but she just adores it. So one of the ways that I was, it was like, well, how do I connect with her? They're entering their teenage years. How do you connect with somebody that has such different interests than you? And this example can apply not just for parents, but, in going out. In this case, I thought, okay, well, I'll sit through a movie. I'll make it through one movie. Like I'll muster all the strength I have not to sass all the way through it and make fun of it.
Fall asleep,
Play on my phone. I mean, thank goodness for chips, because they can keep me awake. But that was my entry into her world. And it's so funny. So throughout COVID, we have watched all of these movies, like name the series, we've probably watched them. And they've become so fun. I can't say I necessarily enjoy the storylines, but I love that I can talk to her about them. And I love that we can, that how was school today? I don't know. It was fine, whatever. Well, how do you make a bridge that goes beyond that to discipling your child? Well, it's connection and trust and being a part of their life experience with them. And that was my bridge into her world, sending ridiculous memes about it or looking up these fan theories about it. Like it became this thing, and then we'd start talking about other things. And then soon enough, we get talking about serious things, or, you have that relationship. And so one, it's, not being afraid to try new things. That's a big part of it. And also just being comfortable with who you are. It's like, well, I don't get it. All right, you're making me watch this. Ha ha ha. It's okay that I don't love it, but going bravely, recognizing who I am. And I'm going to guess, I know a little bit about you, enough to know that you have a few passions.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not all music. Some of them involve superheroes.
Yeah.
But something so simple as going to a movie and inviting somebody out. Like, you know what? I'm really excited about this. You want to come with me? There's no pressure for conversation. There's no pressure for, I'm going to solve all your life problems by telling you about Jesus. It's just, we're going to a movie together. We don't even have to talk. We're staring at a screen and eating popcorn. But it's that shared experience. So shared experience and being authentic and comfortable with who you are. And I think a little dose of courage.
Yeah. And, I found it very interesting in talking about the story with your daughter. Like, it's amazing to think about how much people just want other people to care about the things they're passionate about. Like you get all these fandoms online, right? All these big things about total strangers who make a connection over like things that they mutually care about. So I think that's really interesting to like look for things that people care about. And then you can talk with them about that thing, even if you know nothing about it. If someone asks me about like music, like I'm off, like you'll be my best friend.
I can ask you about music and you're like, you know what I'm talking about? Not a clue.
No,
not a clue. But you know what I love?
Nod.
I love how excited you get talking about it.
Yeah.
Right? And we don't have to be the same, and if all you do is if all I did was surround myself with people like me, how horrible of a life that would be. Like I would be missing out on some amazing richness that God has put all around me to experience and discover. And that's a shame, I would say if I look around the room and everybody agrees with me, I've got it wrong. If I'm looking around the room and everybody thinks we're doing something right, we've got it wrong. Because it means that we're catering to a specific thing. And that's okay sometimes. But if our intention is to build those bridges, the view looks different from the other side. So we need to look around us. Does everybody see the same things that I see? And if not, let's build a bridge alongside of them so we can understand it, what the view looks like from their side. Yeah.
So what do you think are some of the challenges in building bridges? Like, we're post-COVID, and like that's probably a big one. But even before COVID, like making friends is hard.
Yeah.
Getting to know people, it's hard. Why? Like, why is it so hard?
Time, right? That's the thing I hear so often. Well, when am I going to do this? Like, I'm busy with, my kids X, Y, and Z. I've got X, Y, and Z going on for me. I'm at Bible study. I'm at church. I'm doing this. I have to work. I have to, I have to pay my bills. But those are opportunities all around you. It's, I saw this quote a while ago, and I mean like a while ago. So I don't know who it's from, but it says your new best friend could be right in front of you. And I thought, yeah, maybe they could be. Hey, no, as I stare at Kaelyn. But,
like she's giving me these
right?
like
I'm
eyebrows.
giving you the
like,
eyebrows.
oh.
But it's true. Like, you don't know, right? If you haven't taken the time to get to know, there's already shared connections all around you. If you're home working by yourself and your only company is your dog, there's a lot of people in that situation over COVID. Well, you probably take your dog on a walk. There's probably other people taking their dogs for a walk around your neighborhood too. There's probably other people at the dog park. Yeah, you start with, oh, he's so cute. How old is he? Like, it's those little things. But again, shared interest. You work from something that's natural for you, and you just have different lens on your daily activities. Yeah. Doesn't have to be onerous.
I like that. Just in the day-to-day.
In the day-to-day, right? And I think that really resonates for me in how we look and approach our faith too. It doesn't have to be a big production on Sunday, or I can't go to Bible study this week because I have not read what I needed to. I have not prepared, or I can't take a leadership position. I don't think I'm ready for that type of responsibility. I can't look after this thing. I can't, kids ministry, we're always looking for people, right? We're asking for volunteers. Well, I can't do that. I don't know what to do with kids. Well, at some point in your life, you held a wax crayon. It's that simple. You show up. People just want you to show up. That's it. And so set aside some time and show up.
So we can't talk about building bridges without the inevitable burning of bridges.
Yes.
And that sort of question, is there ever a time to stop building the bridge or to burn the bridge? And that's kind of like a weird thing as Christians to talk about.
Very much so. Yeah.
But is there an appropriate place to burn the bridge behind you?
Yeah. It's funny. You asked me that question as we were preparing, and I thought, I don't know. And so I went down this Google rabbit hole. And I tell you, if you're listening to this and you have your phone beside you, it's a fun rabbit hole of going down bridges that have stopped mid-construction. It is fascinating. And you start looking at some of the examples, and there's some that are really old. There's some that are like really modern bridges that have like millions of dollars. Some of them are really famous for being bridges to nowhere.
Like literal
literal
bridges. Okay.
Bridges to nowhere.
I was like, are we speaking metaphorically still?
We could just bounce back and forth.
Literal bridges.
Literal
They've just
bridges
stopped
that have just
construction.
stopped mid-construction with lots of investment and planning and purpose behind them. And it's fascinating. They've stopped for so many reasons. Finances, the age-old ROI. Am I getting my return of investment on the amount that I'm putting into this project? Sometimes they decide no, and they cut bait halfway through. Some of them are obstacles like the people on the other side change their minds. and didn't want to participate in a project anymore. Some of them are, there's just a litany of reasons that people come up with. And I think that the same rings true for a human experience. There are times when I thought I was building a bridge to a certain point and that I was building it with somebody and we had a shared goal. And that person seemed to change their mind or seemed to pull back on a friendship or pull back on a project or, an interest that we started to pursue. And they're just like, well, they just dropped off the face of the earth. What's happening? And yes, you reach out and yes, you do those things, but you also have to respect the other people. You don't have full control over the whole situation. You don't have the bird's eye view, so to say. You can't be objective, So sometimes those bridges seem to be burned. Sometimes God may have another plan. And that is hard to accept. When you think you're making a new friend or you think you're making inroads into a community in a church and this barrier comes into mid-construction, let's say, right? Sometimes it takes a detour. Sometimes a project comes to a standstill. Trusting God in that process and asking Him, is there something that you need me to do here? Truly, honestly, in prayer, going to Him and saying, is there something you need me to do here? Are you willing to do it? Because sometimes the obstacle might be you, and that's uncomfortable. Sometimes He has a different plan for you, and that's okay. So recognizing that the other side is always God. And as long as you are firm in your foundation, you build a bridge and generally it's going across an expanse of land, a river or valley or something, right? There's something that you have to traverse that you couldn't otherwise, or that you need a shortcut or, all these reasons. But they're always started on a foundation. So as long as your foundation remains firm in Christ, then we need to trust the process. And we need to be open to allowing ourselves to be used, however it may be. Maybe that bridge is on pause because He has some other people coming to equip them on the other side to meet you. We don't know. That's really hard in our humanness to understand sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But would you say, from our side of things, what if someone's trying to build a bridge with us? Is there a time to stop building that bridge? Is that, I don't know. I feel like sometimes people speak about relationships like as Christians, we're obligated to relationships. Are we obligated to continue bridge building on our part?
That's a great one. I would say why. That would be my answer. Because I think that we really need to examine our motives, and if we're in it because we feel committed to it and we've started something and we don't want to lose the investment we've made in something, is that for us or is that for God? Because He can use a broken bridge. He can use a dilapidated, collapsed bridge, literally and metaphorically speaking. He can still use that. Broken bridges are okay. It doesn't mean that we forsake seeking Him in that. And I think that's where we get caught sometimes, right? Especially with relationships. It is difficult when you have somebody, and I'll be honest, there are times in ministry where you're like, why is this person keeping at this? Or why do they keep coming to me about this? And one of the tough things in my personal life and in my professional life that I have to ask sometimes are, what are their motives? Recognizing that I may never know. And I can have my assumptions, that doesn't mean I'm correct. I'm fully biased in all my humanness and whatever baggage and life experience I bring to it. But making sure my motives are clear, to glorify God in the midst of that situation. There are times when I've intentionally walked in one direction. My career, for example, I intentionally walked towards this goal of being a professional mental health counselor. And at every step in the process, said to God, I'm doing this, but I want it to be for your glory. Use me wherever you will. So I got my bachelor's degree. I got my master's degree. And I worked in a church where none of it was required. And then I felt a real call on my heart to learn more about people who were not like me. And so up north, that meant learning about so many different cultures and life experiences that I didn't have growing up in Lethbridge. So I went out of the church and worked in a secular setting that allowed me that opportunity. And boy, am I glad I did. I knew it was the right decision at the time. I didn't know why. And when that came to a close, same thing. Well, what am I going to do now? I thought I was building this bridge that way. So I'm like, okay, well, there's that point on the horizon. I'm going to go marching towards there. That's where I really feel is the right place to go. Well, he took me on a U-turn and placed this incredibly strong pull on my heart to return back to ministry and to dedicate all of my life experience and my knowledge and my learning and my training and expertise and all that to be used for his glory in the church. And so if I would have started at 18 years old going, this is my career, this is a bridge I'm building, and wasn't willing to, metaphorically burn or quit construction or whatever halfway through, I would have missed out on all this amazingness that God has unraveled before me, So it's okay sometimes. Don't carry the burnt bridge. Leave it, commit it to God, and be open to what he has next for you to build. Just don't quit building.
Just keep building.
Just keep building.
Don't stop construction.
Yeah.
Though we sometimes wish they would here in Edmonton.
Right.
There's winter and there's construction.
And there's construction. Yes, followed quickly by wasps.
Yes, that too.
They're coming. Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming in, for sharing. It was great to have you. Great to talk with you. I love to pick your brains and all your wisdom about
Who knew
people.
I loved bridges?
Yeah, I learn something new every day, Sheri.
Yeah. Yeah, you should see, this is now what I picture is you playing us out with like Bridge Over Troubled Water or something hokey like that, right? Like there's a reason, we
that's
identify
copyrighted.
so much. I know we can't, it's copyrighted. But, like it's something that I've struggled with, like I said, being new in a community, new in a church, at a new stage in life, in a new environment. And it doesn't have to be intimidating. Feel that intimidation, but then be okay with starting small. Yeah. It's that simple. Start small.
That's great.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, thanks, Sheri. Do you have any final words of wisdom?
Oh, I'm fresh out.
Okay.
I know.
We'll save it for another day.
I no puppets or anything today. Are you proud of me?
I was expecting the crayons to come out.
I know.
I was ready.
Look, I have a real grown-up pen beside me and everything. So this was lovely. If you guys haven't listened to the other podcasts that Kaelyn has done, please go back and listen to them. They are fabulous.
Oh, you're such a
They're
gem.
absolutely wonderful. Pastor Tom and Pastor Justin have done some really great sessions with you.
And, thank you.
It's just a delight to have you here serving our church in this way.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's my
Maybe
pleasure.
this podcast will be a bridge.
That's the hope.
Let's see.
My bridge.
Oh, your
Trying.
bridge.
With you, Sheri. You're
Yeah.
building my bridge.
We're building it together.
That's right. We came full circle.
Full circle. See that?
All right. Well, thanks for coming in. Thanks for chatting with me.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we'll have you on again sometime.
Uh-oh.
So you have to think about building roads or something next time.
I know.
Flying
Maybe
airplanes.
no building. I don't know. We'll see.
All
Yeah.
right. Thanks, Sheri.
Kaelyn.
Take care.
Bye.
From the Valley is a Sturgeon Valley Baptist Church production. If you like what you heard, be sure to check out our other 2 podcast episodes. And you can join us in person or online every Sunday for our worship service at 10 a.m. My name's Kaelyn Ham. Thanks for listening.